So for those who may not know me, my name is Beryl, and I am the founder and MD of AngledNorth Limited, and we are the hosts of After Hours, which is the segment that we have today. And at AngledNorth, what we do is we help aspiring and current leaders to build their personal brands and to advance their careers. So if you're looking for a promotion at your current workplace, or you're looking for a new job, or you're looking to expand your business, we have solutions around that. So this segment, which is After Hours, is a segment where we interview leaders and we just talk to them about their careers and talk to them about their journeys and get to learn from their experiences. Yeah. And our guest today is Judith Owigar. And Judy is the founder of Juakali Workforce, and she's also the co-founder of Akirachix. And she also works currently as a smart mobility and oh my gosh, I can't read it. Okay, but she's a smart mobility consultant at UN Habitat. She also serves at the boards of several organizations, including the Swedish Program for ICT in Developing Regions Board, SPIDER, Lumen Labs Board, and as a leader in the Tech Leadership Council of the African Women in Tech Leadership Council. So Judy is very passionate about the intersection of women, of youth, technology, and entrepreneurship. She has spent years working in these areas, enabling ecosystems, and co-founded Akirachix, which is a widely recognized globally social enterprise that enables young women to build careers in tech. She's also supporting governments currently in building smart cities by utilizing insights and technology. Judy has shared the stage with former US President Barack Obama and the current president of Kenya, who is Uhuru Kenyatta. And she's been recognized with various awards and honors, including CNN's 10 African Voices to Follow on Twitter, the 2015 East African Acumen Fellow, and the 2014 International Focus Fellow. She's also been featured in the book Female Innovators at Work by Daniel Newnham. So she's done a lot. And Judy enjoys traveling, running, hiking, going to the gym, anything athletic. She's very athletic. In fact, I think, Judy, you correct me if I'm wrong, I remember you telling me that the best part of running is that feeling of breathlessness. And I was like, oh my gosh, the part that I hate the most is when so yeah, but she's very athletic. And in today's talk, Judy is going to share how her career has evolved over time. We'll talk about her work. We'll talk about starting a social enterprise, finding founding partners, building a global personal brand, being a speaker, a board member, so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Judith Owigar. Hey, Judy.
Hey, Beryl. Thanks so much for that amazing introduction.
Wow.
It's glad to be here.
How do you find the time to do all these things, Judy? Goodness, you're not even close to 40. Like, how is it possible?
It's so funny. I mean, it's an interesting question. The funny thing is, I guess this is what happens when everything you're doing is recognized. Like, I'm sure for everybody here, if we actually picked out everything you're doing, like, we jump to the part of like building a brand, like everything you're doing, even if it's like you enjoy cooking and, you know, you actually build a brand out of it, your job, you know, your hobbies, the things you do in your free time. I guess the point is, I think I have actually just documented everything that I am doing, and that's why it looks like it's a lot, you know, but I think that's the difference. Mine has documentation. Yeah.
I love what you have said. I'm going to put a bookmark right there. Yeah, but being recognized for the work that you do. Wow. Okay, so let's start off with the, you know, the beginning of our careers is super incognito.
Yeah.
So what do you remember? What was your first job ever?
So my first job, actually my very first job was an intern at UNEP.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, I was a website development intern at UNEP for a period of 3 months. So that was actually my first job. And for me, it was such a great honor because I always admired the UN. I was part of the MUN with you, as you remember, in even primary school and high school. So yeah, that was my first job.
Awesome. Okay, and then from there, what happened? What do you do next?
So I actually got my first internship when I was still in university. Then I completed university. Then for my first job, it was actually in tech support in a company that developed software for insurance companies. Yeah, moment. I can hear some background noise.
Please mute it in case you're not yet muted.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, so my first job was in tech support in a company. It's called Turnkey Africa. They develop software for insurance companies. So basically what I used to do was I'd go to the client site with code that has been developed by the developer and install it. And really at that point, I knew I wanted to be a developer, even though I wasn't the one doing the development. So my role at that point was really, I've just forgotten the word. It's close to user testing. So you take the solution that has been developed, go to the client site, and then you collect feedback over how the client interacted with it. Did it actually solve the problem? Then with time, I had to send that back to the developer, but sometimes I was like, I feel like I can do this, So sometimes I would actually troubleshoot the problem myself and send the solution to the developer like this. Yeah. If you don't have the solution, I mean, if you don't have, I guess, like, don't wait for the position to do what you want. Like, you can do it before somebody actually gives you the position or the authorization. And of course, judge the moment, because sometimes you step on people's toes. But I think that's part of, what do you call it? That's just the price you pay sometimes, to...
Yeah, I get you. And what, I'm thinking, even as you're saying that, right? Yeah. We always wait for permission, you're like, but I'm not the person who's actually hired to do that. And that sort of thing. Yeah, why is that? What's that thing?
That's true. And I feel like it's really, I see it more with women. I see it a lot with me. It's also something that I'm still learning. I guess we're afraid to rock the boat. We want to keep the peace, in the organization. We want to be likable. You don't want to be the one who's described as she's just out for herself, So you want permission to, you want to be given permission, you want to be given validation to actually try out something new. But for me, what I did was I started with low risk things, things that, as you're building your muscle for rocking the boat, you low risk items. And also now, especially like if you're in career and you want to step up to a bigger position, you'll always be asked to justify, like, why do you think, even just like in an interview, why do you think you're the best person for this? Like, what experience do you have? But you can always go back to, I actually did this and I did that. So you've been building the experience without even getting the position, And then something I have learned in my short life is sometimes you should just step out even if you're not ready. Because usually I find that by the time I'm ready, it's too late, Really too late. So nowadays especially when I feel like I'm not very ready, of course you put in place, you try and get ready, but I don't wait to be ready because it's usually too late. I've usually waited too long, and then I've also seen people who, I guess for me, the thing that pushed me is I've been in rooms where I've seen, not to say it badly, but people who you would say are like, you've done more than them, you have a stronger track record. Because of their confidence, they're giving you instructions, and many times I just question myself, like, what if I actually raised my hand, instead of waiting for somebody to pick me, So that's one of the things I've been working on.
Oh, it's like you were in our session last week. I was talking about that, like, raise your hand, just get started doing things. And I think, just going back to even that session we had with Masharia, it was Masharia Kinga. And one of the things that we were talking about was that, just raising your hand and not waiting to be given permission. Because, what this is the way I think many of us look at our careers. My boss should see the good job I'm doing. My boss should recognize and I need a promotion.
They see, they recognize, but as long as you don't ask, you're not stressing them.
You're not stressing them. You know,
this is good. I like this.
Exactly. You know, I don't want to look like I'm rocking the boat. I just want to wait my turn. And then when they call me, when my number is up on the conveyor belt of career, I will be the first person to jump at it. But it never comes. Yeah, because the other people who are like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and that thing of raising your hand, you know, it's a consistent trait, honestly. I see with people, and now I've known you for many years. We literally grew up together. So, you know, I can like, when I look at your life, you're one of those people who just raises their hands. Yeah. Like, okay, I will try. I will do it. It's scaring me, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, but those are really, really good things. Wow.
And
okay.
Also just, I mean, I've also seen my transformation because I've not always had this confidence in myself, you know. It's something, it's muscle once again that I actually had to build, you know. So, you know, there's also just, you know, people, you have grace with yourself, even when you feel like, you know, I should have raised my hand, but I didn't. You just, you know what, next time I'm going to raise half my hand, you know, and then next time it's going to be 3/4, you know. So yeah, doing something like that. Yeah,
absolutely. But I love that tip, low risk. What low risk things can you do? Okay. All right. So clearly you took a low risk one at Turnkey. Okay, then how did that go for you? And then what did you do next?
So the thing is, I took this low risk and it did not convert. So I did not get the position invited. So what I decided to do, I decided to look for a job where I would actually be developing code. And that's where I landed in my second position, where I was a web developer in a small company called AngledNorth Labs, but now they've already closed down. And really at that point, I really just wanted to be the best developer. You know, as a developer, you compete on a global level. You know, it's not just about Kenya. It's really about global because your market is actually global. And I was looking for an opportunity, you know, I was ready to put in the time, the hours. At that point, I was really ready to do that. So I stayed in AngledNorth Labs for a while, and then I started volunteering at Ushahidi as a developer. And when I started volunteering there, I invited a couple of my friends to volunteer as well. And Ushahidi at that point it still is a global company with a global network of volunteers. And the thing that surprised me was my friends and I were the first female developer volunteers. And for me, I was quite shocked. I was like, it's supposed to be an international company. What do you mean these are the first women who have volunteered to code? And then, you know, just because of where I was working in my office, where we were 4 female developers, and people would constantly question the work that we are doing, because, you know, in the development world, their developer, like tech development, is mainly full of men. So, you know, just getting messages of questioning our existence in technology is what led us to start Akirachix. So we started Akirachix around that time. And the whole goal was to talk to young women in high schools about opportunities for careers in technology, science, technology, engineering, and math. And at that point, it used to be something we used to do in our free time. We'd go to Precious Blood, go to Kenya High School. At that point, we'd also hold networking events. Around that point, I also switched jobs and I went to work at a Japanese NGO as an IT engineer. And really at that point, it was just, you know, because I needed to pay my bills, you know, even though here I was building my dream, but also at that point, I didn't think this could actually be something that could pay me, like Akirachix as it existed.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know,
so this was your group of friends who you'd come to volunteer with at Ushahidi. Okay. So if I remember rightly, that's the time that Ushahidi was doing this crowdsourcing platform, Yes. Okay.
So that might have been around 2008. Yeah. Around that time. So, but at that point, was it 2008?
It was just post-elections. I remember Ushahidi was the platform that was mapping hotspots of post-election violence. So that's 2008, right?
Yeah,
Around that time?
Yeah, so we were still volunteering at that point. But it's actually in 2010 when we decided that this thing is going to be called Akirachix, but also a factor that led to that development was the iHub being set up. And it was initially being set up by Ushahidi. So now when we finally got a space is when we're like, okay, let's bring more women into this space. Let's have networking events for women in technology. And as we used to have different meetups, and when we were having those meetups is when we thought, okay, what is going to be our anchor project? Like we wanted to go beyond networking events. And that's when we started focusing on training. And now when we started focusing on training, that's when we were forced to kind of like form an organization. Because now when you're a training institute, when you offer a training, first you have to get the students, first you need funding. Let's just start there. You need a space to train these people, and you need to, and when you have this space, there are a few bills. We got a lot of people to volunteer. We got space volunteered, we got computers volunteered, but at the same time we needed some money to run the program. So we used to have like donations from amongst people in the team. You could say we were bootstrapping it at that point. And now when we wanted to establish the training program, like now we wanted something more legit. You know, we needed trainers because we were all working. Then we'd go and train the students. Then we'd ask people to train for free. And it was very hard to hold people accountable. Yeah. So at that point, we're like, okay, now we need to hire people. And if we need to hire people, we need to get money, like more money than we have to actually hire people. And then now we started looking for grants. We got a small grant to cover part of the training program. And it is at that point that we actually registered the organization, because so this is how naive we were, you know. So we applied for this grant, once again from a network, a connection we had made in the iHub. Yeah. So the World Bank was funding a certain section, like there was a mobility lab in the iHub. Then we kept on meeting the people who are coming. Whenever they would come over, we used to, there were some networking events Akirachix used to run called Mobile Mondays. It was not our responsibility to run it, but because we were in the iHub all the time, and the people who were running that event were not there, we took over that whole experience of running. We managed that whole session. So when we had a call for people to run networking events of that nature, we applied. Yeah, so they knew us, they had seen what we were doing. So there was already trust and reputation, right?
Yeah.
So we applied for the grant, we got the grant, but now when we got the grant, we needed a place to put the money. So,
hey, Judy. Hey. Yes, my internet lacks fiber. Okay, I'm back now.
Yeah. So that's my place until Akirachix. So I stayed in Akirachix for 6 to 7 years, maybe 6.5 years. And then right after that, I left Akirachix. But in the middle of running Akirachix, I started building my startup, Juakali Workforce, which was really targeting workers in the informal sector, trying to build a service to, you know, for people to access micro jobs, like workers for short-term jobs, like painters, electricians. So experimenting with different models for such a service.
Yeah.
And then, you know, after the 6.5 years in Akirachix, I left to go and consult at UN Habitat, but also to test out business models for Juakali Workforce, which I must say, still building out and searching for this repeatable, scalable model, but also just progressing with UN Habitat, working on smart mobility. So mainly it's about the intersection of technology and mobility. So this could be mobility, car sharing services, ride sharing services, or electric mobility, looking at cars, you know, just going electric. yeah, basically. So that's really how my career has been, jumping a little from different places. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. So when it comes to UN Habitat, the work that you do, yeah, it's with governments. Yeah. So what kind of things have you done here in Kenya? Is it only in Kenya? Okay. So what kind of things have you advised our government about? Yeah.
So the funny thing is my work with UN Habitat took a very different turn. When I first entered there, and it was really focusing on, even as we're focusing on mobility, at that point we were still exploring how technology could be incorporated, and looking at it in mobility, it's about digitization, how mobility, the digitization of mobility. So let me start from there back, and then we come to
okay.
mobility. So when we talk about transport and mobility, our main focus is on two things, is on public transport, which is like matatus and buses. And really it's the most efficient way to move people within the city, less carbon emissions, less cars on the road, less congestion. And the second part we actually focus on is on non-motorized transport. The non-motorized transport is mainly focusing on cycling and walking. So how do we improve the environment for cyclists and for pedestrians? So mainly advising governments around investing in non-motorized transport, because what we see from different areas is once there's an investment in NMT, that's what we call it, NMT, you see an increase of people walking and cycling. Take, for example, the Kileleshwa bypass. Once they actually put in place the pedestrian walks that are protected and they have clearly marked lanes and there's actually space for cyclists to ride. We don't really have very defined cycling lanes, but somebody can actually cycle there. You can see that more people are actually walking, running, cycling. And for me, who's a runner, like sometimes you just want to get onto Kileleshwa bypass and you can now relax because you feel a little bit safe because you're kind of protected. So that's the bulk of the work that we do in mobility. So now it comes to where does digitization come in, right? Where does technology come in? So one of the ways technology comes in is when we look at, you see, if everybody here owns a car, if everybody, a car is something that most people want to own. Most people, when they get a job, that's what you're trying to save for, or that's what you're dreaming of. So it's something that people aspire to, right? But now if all of us actually drove cars, we'd have so much traffic in Nairobi. We'd have even more traffic than we have at the moment. So one of the things that I've done is air quality monitoring, monitoring what would happen if we actually made some roads car-free. So for example, like Luthuli Avenue, there's one section of Luthuli Avenue that was made car-free. Like they removed the matatus, and the cars, and actually measured the air quality there, of course with air quality monitoring devices, to see what was the effect for that. One of the things that business people were afraid of, most business people assume that, if people have a place to park, I'll have more, as in those are the clients I want, people who can drive.
Yeah.
From the Luthuli Road experiment, what they saw is that many people, their business has actually increased because customers feel safer. I mean, ultimately, even driving in town is just hell, like looking for parking, So now if you can actually go to a place where you can comfortably just walk, there are places you can actually sit, just making the experience, like making it a better experience for different people, for all road users, with a specific focus on vulnerable groups, women, children, old persons, persons with disabilities, advising governments on that. The second way I have been working on digitization is we have been supporting startups in the mobility space. So these are startups that are doing ride share, car share, startups in logistics. And then for the main project I've been working on is also electric mobility startups, because now we are starting to look at renewable energy and how that affects air quality. So yeah, that's how my career has kind of pivoted, taken a tangent. Still using, I must say, the skills that I'm still using are still my knowledge of technology, because I actually feel like working in tech taught me how to think, taught me how to learn, taught me how to learn new technologies, you know. And basically that kind of thinking is really valuable, especially in UN Habitat, when talking to tech companies, tech startups.
Yeah.
And I actually carved a niche for myself as the go-to person for startups and tech companies. So that's one. And then the second thing I learned from my career that I'm also transferring here is one of the things I did a lot in Akirachix was building partnerships. And partnerships were necessary for fundraising, for getting partners to come and support our program, for getting volunteers. And really that's the same thing that I do in my work here, like working with different partners, especially now that my role has taken more of a global feel. So working with different partners in different countries and kind of like linking their objectives to the UN Habitat objectives so that we can work together.
Good. And let's just pick up from there. Yeah. In terms of startups and everything. So what is one thing that you see is a very common problem with startups? You know, people always complain, I can't get funding. I've put in so many proposals, but nothing's coming through. What's the biggest issue you see there?
Well, to be honest, that's a real problem. As an entrepreneur and also in this other position, I think one of the great challenges I have seen is finding the right funder, you know. Sometimes you are applying at the wrong time, you know. Maybe it's, what can I say, too early, especially in this market. Let me just be honest, especially in this market, whenever you're talking to funders or investors, they really would like to see some track record. They would like to see some traction. They would like to see some revenue. Very rarely have I seen people in this market being given money for ideas as individuals. Maybe as companies. As companies, you want to start and launch a new product. Yes, people could give you money for a new idea having based on your track record and your traction on this previous project. But to be honest, I feel like we are judged harshly over here. Even sitting in the decision-making seat.
Now.
Sometimes, you know, I find that, and it's a reality. People want to see traction. People want to see revenue. You know, we haven't reached the point where people are just being given money for ideas.
I hear you.
I haven't seen it, you know. Maybe I've not unlocked that level. Yeah.
No, you're a funder. You know, we have to listen to you. But I think so too. And I think another one I could pick up from, which is something you've alluded to, is the fact that people sometimes don't, like, you know, the bridge between UN Habitat and these technology institutions, where someone is so focused on the technology, but UN Habitat is focused on the outcome.
That's true.
And you can't be able to relate these things.
You can't.
You're not speaking the language. And I think it's not even, you know, like I work with people who are, you know, entrepreneurs, whatever. And sometimes relating what they have been doing to actual business outcomes is the real issue. And it's true, we judge people harshly. You know, it's the same thing even in recruiting. Yeah,
that is true. Like sometimes the funder you're pitching to does not understand what you're selling to them. You know,
I've never been to Kenya before.
Exactly. They don't have a reference point. I mean, it's a real challenge, and it's not the entrepreneur's fault. I should say this. It really isn't. I would say it's really up to funders to do more due diligence, but sometimes they just don't have time. Sometimes it's not their priority, you know.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would say you need to go into spaces where you'll find these funders that are probably not in Kenya. So join other networking organizations that are based in the UK, in whatever your target market for investor is, you know, whether it's Y Combinator, you know, so that you can learn to speak their language, you know, so that there is not a lot of translation. And then sometimes funders just don't appreciate the local context when they don't understand. Because sometimes I have sat in places where we're making a decision. And for me, I guess because I have seen different startups, I would look at a startup and be like, this person has done this with this little money. Can you imagine what this person would do if we actually give them more money?
More money.
And sometimes you need somebody on the table who's actually saying, this person has potential. They just have not been given the opportunity. And this is what they have done with the money they had. You know, let's give this person an opportunity. So on one hand, we need more people, more indigenous, local, you know, people who understand the market sitting in the decision-making tables. But that's not something we can influence, you know. What we can influence is to go into spaces where these funders are, start understanding the language they're discussing, getting them familiar with our products, our ideas, building that relationship, you know, building trust, you know, because people give money to people they know, people they trust, you know, so building that so that they can understand what the solution you're trying to sell and how they can support you. Another thing I wanted to say was, apart from applying for funding at the wrong time, maybe you're too early or something, another thing is applying for funding, applying to the wrong funder, you know? So you also need to map who are these people who would be interested in you, whether it's a grant funder, whether it's an investor. Is this in their interest? Because also then they have KPIs. Also then they want to look good at who's giving them money. So you need to know that by them funding you, you're making them look good. You know, ultimately, human beings, you know, we all have
What's
our
in it
interest.
for me?
Yeah. So you also need to know what is in their interest for them to support you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And let's pick that up from Akirachix. So at the point when you guys were registering the organization, so you've applied for this. I'm even wondering how you applied for the grant. How did you exactly, under what auspices did the grant go?
We actually applied under Akirachix Association, even though it didn't exist on paper. We just applied. We wrote, you know, sometimes you need to go with all the confidence, really. So we applied, and then when they asked for, the only thing they asked for was financial documents, like financial records. So what we did was we submitted our financial records that had not yet been audited, and we said that our financial records would be audited, like they'd be audited after a year or something. But we didn't lie, you know, we just said, these are our financial records, they're not audited, but they'll be audited within a year. And then now when we finally got the grant, they're like, okay, so give us your certificate. And at that point, we're just like,
give us,
just wait, just you don't really say why you need time. You're going to yeah.
That's amazing. So why did you guys choose Akirachix as an association and not limited, for example?
Because, you know, it makes it harder to fundraise, especially if you're fundraising for nonprofits. You know, once you're a limited company, it actually changes how nonprofits can interact with you, or if they can even interact with you. I'll give an example of the UN, which I'm familiar with. If you come with a limited company, you actually have to go through competitive procurement, you know, but with a non-profit company, there's a different process, which is not as complicated as procurement. And I would say that that is the case for many non-profits. You know, that's why sometimes they specify that you should be a non-profit, and you should specify, like, if the organization gets disbanded, which organization is going to get what you have, you know, your resources and stuff like that. So that's also something to think about. If you're looking for VC funding, maybe it's a little bit of a flexible, but now you have to look at, if you're VC funding, they obviously want to look at return of investment, but is a nonprofit really the best vehicle for return of investment? If it's being based here in Kenya, you have to ask yourself about taxation. Those are very basic problems that become monsters in 2 minutes. Taxation and how you're taxed depends on how you are registered. So also considering that.
Very interesting. Okay. So how did you guys find it difficult after World Bank? Did you find it difficult to raise funding, or what was it like?
Yes, it was actually difficult because, the other challenge with being a nonprofit, especially a small one, is that many times people just give you money for a project. But, you have administration costs, and sometimes it was a real challenge to justify administration costs. And so for, I think, a period of like 1 or 2 years, we were only getting project funding, which means those of us actually doing the administration, we had to find other ways to, support ourselves at that point. And then the other challenge is sometimes when you're dealing with funders, depending on the funder, they actually limit their admin costs. They could say to 10%, some say do not exceed 30%. The more reputable you get with more traction and more influence, I feel like you can actually negotiate around that. But many times, many funders do have a cap on how much can actually go into your admin costs. And, admin costs, they usually lump that with like, some of them actually say salaries are admin costs, and then now when you think of salaries and then rent, if you're not paying salaries or rent, like, that's a big part of the budget. So,
Oh, okay. So how did you guys go about, what do you think really strengthened Akirachix? Because Akirachix became such an iconic brand. Yeah, I think anytime tech would come up or women in tech, everyone was like, Akirachix. So how did you get to that part? Yeah, because I'm sure that should have eased that at least, somewhat.
To be honest, I think 2 things actually strengthened that. One was our brand, and 2 was our networks. So 1 was our brand, basically how we positioned ourselves in the ecosystem.
Okay.
Basically as an organization that was building a pipeline for women in technology. And this pipeline would be able to benefit other technology companies that were looking for technology resources. So working with training institutions, us being a training institution, and then also branching off into, at some point we had a high school program, a kids program. So kind of like being this wholesome pipeline building organization, of technology. So basically everybody could see where they could fit in. I must say at the beginning, there was a lot of talk for, if you guys are only focusing on women, what about the men, But at that point, I'm just like, the next person in the tech industry is nearly always a man. Like, I remember the last time we actually did a research, and I think in Kenya, it was like women represented 15%, average 15% of the technology industry, So, now as we started, getting hard numbers, and even as people started building companies and looking for employees or staff, and because of the interactions with us, they'd be like, okay, now we want to have women developers on the team. And just the challenge of actually getting good developers, the challenge of getting good developers, the challenge of getting good female developers, now people started recognizing like this is actually a challenge, and they actually became our allies in, building this pipeline. So that was really about our brand, but that was also linked to our network, by building relationships with different partners in technology. First, the startups who would employ the girls who go through our training program, or even just big companies that could fund us, like also reaching out to Kenyan corporate companies through their CSR projects, to see how they could support us. Another thing was having different talks, being visible, being memorable. So that in itself, you know, when we go to conferences was a good place for us to network, especially with people who are not in our direct network, especially when we're looking at global reach. You know, international conferences was always a good place to do that. So I think, like I said, the two things, branding and networking, and then now when you add like how we were doing the networking with the conferences, sometimes people look at these conferences as just trips. But if you actually have a goal of going to network with certain people, and I don't even know if there's a science of networking, you know, I basically believe that anybody you talk to could open a network for you. Like sometimes you just don't know who it could be, as in maybe there's a science to it, but I don't know. Because for me, the people who've really come through for me, I have met them in hotel lobbies. I have met them, you know, from actual introductions, like people doing references. Some of them I've just met them in conferences. Some of it is friends. So I really don't know if there's a science, but I always believe that anybody you meet could actually open a door for you. And that's really how I operate with my networking.
Yeah. But one of the things I remember a lot about Akirachix, you guys were very deliberate about being visible. Yeah. Exactly. You're very deliberate about being visible. So maybe just talk a little bit about that in light of
especially as a growing organization, you see, the thing is, you're trying to build trust, right? You're trying to build trust with people who could actually support you, people who could come to, we can say, your business and spend money. Let's say for our training programs, for parents to bring their kids, they want to be able to go and they want to Google Akirachix and find something beyond our website, you know, so that they can actually trust their children to us. When you look at funders also want to Google you, and they want to see which other funder has supported you, or who else has profiled you. And then also corporate companies. People want quick wins, especially in corporates. They want to fund an organization that makes them look good, you know, that makes them look like, you know, we are not just about the money. So one, you need to be visible. They need to be able to find you. You need to be top of mind. You know, when they're like, should we fund? It needs to be Akirachix. Well, that was my goal. I was like, be top of mind when people are thinking, who are we supporting? So you need to be visible, one, so that they can at least see, like, recognize, like, put you in consideration. But secondly, you also need to be memorable. Like, people need to be able to speak of your organization in rooms that you don't have access to. You know, the board meeting, when they're deciding who shall we support, when they're deciding who shall we fund, you're not there, you're not seated there, but you need to have your presence, whether it's online, virtually, physically, needs to be able to be there for them to be like, yes, we shall support these people. Maybe they're young as an organization. Maybe they don't have audited financial accounts, you know, but, you know, we have seen the work that they're doing, and they're doing great work, and people speak well of them, you know, and for that, we are going to trust them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And so now let's release that Akirachix brand to Judy, the brand. Yeah. So at that point, I think, Judy, you just became like the household tech, women in tech brand. Yeah. So was that a deliberate thing, or do you think it was something that came by accident?
I think it was both. Ultimately, even as we're building the Akirachix brand, for some reason, I was very aware that brands are attached to people, you know, and that's why we have brand ambassadors. Well, this is, you know, they say hindsight is 20/20, so now I can put these two dots together. But brands are attached to people, and that's why we have influencers, we have brand ambassadors, we have, for the people who know about, like, Fenty, we have Rihanna, you know. Rihanna is Fenty, Fenty is Rihanna. Okay, it's not the same, but, you know. So one of the things I recognized was that for Akirachix to be known, somebody has to be at the forefront. And I remember I actually had that conversation with myself because, I mean, I do like attention, but a lot of attention is a lot for me, But I was like, so, if I do this, I'm going to be the face, That means people will recognize me. People who I don't know will recognize me. And one of the things I feared was, what expectation does that come with, Will people be looking at me and thinking I have money and stuff like that? But once I made peace with, okay, so if Akirachix is being visible, it means you are being visible. So I was like, okay. So to some extent, I felt like I was sacrificing myself on behalf of this organization, like my identity, because I was assigning my identity to this organization. But that led also to the second part. And one of the things, after some time, I was like, okay, I need to get something out of this. Like, I was like, this needs to live beyond Akirachix. Like, I wanted to stay in Akirachix for a long time, but I always felt that if this is the greatest thing I do with my life, can this live beyond me being in Akirachix, So can I carry this? Can this brand recognition move beyond Akirachix? Can I actually bottle it and carry it somewhere else? And I think when I started thinking about that, the way I approached it was now more deliberate. I would actually select where I was going to speak. And when I went to speak, I would be very deliberate about who I'm going to speak to, because now I started thinking, yes, I'm building a global brand for Akirachix, but I'm also building a global brand for Judy. And at some point, I realized that I needed to separate the two identities, that, and people need to be able to recognize that these identities are actually separate. And I say that because for me, when I was leaving Akirachix, actually before I left Akirachix, my greatest battle was the battle of identity, actually. And the battle was that my identity was so attached to Akirachix. Like, even for myself, I questioned myself, if I'm not working in Akirachix, so who am I? Even to myself, who am I if I'm not working with Akirachix? Am I just Judy? And now working through that, you are just Judy, and Judy is just fine by herself without Akirachix. Once I had worked on Judy's fine by herself without Akirachix, I was like, now I'm ready to leave because I am my own person. So yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. So did you, I guess a very big question would be, do you ever doubt yourself?
Of course. Of course, so much. I don't know
how do you push through it?
Okay.
Because let me just tell you, maybe for the guys who don't know, right? 2015. What was that thing that you did? Okay, it was, I just remember, it was some summit. There was President Obama and there was President Uhuru. And there you are, Judy, in the middle. And they're over there nodding. I was watching you on TV. And over there nodding, as Judy is advising them on the future of work. And I was just looking at you like, do you doubt yourself? Do you ever feel like, oh my gosh, I'm an imposter?
Yeah.
There are more qualified people who should have been on this stage. What the heck am I doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Let me say, for example, in that moment in 2015, because I just found out I'd be on stage with Obama and Uhuru the day before,
The day before?
Yeah, just the day before.
You didn't call in sick?
No! I was already there. Then now they tell me they got this bomb, I knew I'd be on the panel, but I just didn't know. I knew the other people, I just didn't know that the two presidents would be joining us on the panel. Yeah. Then now the presidents would be joining us on the panel. Did I think I was the most qualified person to be on that stage? No, I didn't think I was the most qualified person to be on that stage. But at that point, I changed my mindset. I was like, yes, I'm not the most qualified person, but I'm the one who's going to be on that stage. So, I'm the one. Yes, it was like, here I am. I'm the one who's going to be on that stage. And I was like, I need to own it, And I was like, and I need to own my story because nobody knows my story like I do. I was like, I'm not here to tell anybody's story. I'm the expert of my story. So I was like, I'm just going to tell my story, however it will be, And then obviously I felt very nervous, like on the morning of. And I think I was more nervous about meeting President Obama than about like speaking. Because this is somebody, it's the president, powerful man in the world, Yeah. But when it came to the speaking time, I won't lie, I was a little bit nervous, especially when you see like all these important people who are seated there, like all the CEOs, all those cameras and everybody like taking photos. And in that moment, I just decided to suspend all judgment. Like I suspended all judgment. Like when I say that, I meant I'm not going to think about what the Safaricom CEO is thinking, or the KCB CEO, or that person who I've seen on TV who's over there, or Gishuru. Oh my God, am I even talking right? No, I was just like, I'm not thinking about anybody else. I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say. And I'm just going to be in this moment. And when I was on stage, I was like, I blocked out everybody else. I was just like, it's just the five of us. Everybody else, I don't know about you guys, but it's just the five of us, Yeah. And I was like, these people are just human beings. Like this was me, my coping mechanism. They are human beings. It's flesh and blood. Like there's nothing really special about Obama. Like that's what I was telling myself. There's nothing special about Uhuru. I mean, they wear clothes like me. They drink water like me, So that's all I was thinking about at that point. Like not mom is watching, the whole world is watching. I mean, at the back of my mind, I was like, the thing about being a minority is that when you speak for the whole minority, So I was very aware that how I spoke would be basically how African women are judged, yeah? Mm-hmm. But I was just like, okay, because of that, we're getting it right, yeah? That's all, we're getting it right, but we're not going to think about everybody else. Like, how's her accent? Did she get that right? No, I was like, suspend judgment. Then after the whole thing, we can go and judge ourselves all we want. But in this moment, we judge.
Yeah. You represented us well, by the way. That was awesome. I mean, yeah, guys, if you want, you can go and check it out. It was, what was the summit? What was the name?
GS Summit.
GS Summit. Yeah. On YouTube. Yes, you can catch her. She's the one taking them around, telling them, see here, see there. It was very nice to watch. Okay. So I think one of the things I've picked up is that you're very deliberate. Yeah, you're very deliberate about what story you put out there about yourself. You're very deliberate about building your network. One of the things, Judy, I have to admit, is that people will tell me, because of course I work a lot with people who are career professionals or business people, and they'll tell me, I'm really struggling with, okay, let's say a business, someone in business, and I'm really struggling with selling my product. I'm really struggling with, getting the meetings with so and such and such. Or someone who's a career professional will be like, I really want to let's say I want to get into Facebook. I want to get into Google, yeah? But irrevocably, it tends to be that the person also has, their networks they're not busy building their networks, and they don't maintain them, they don't maintain their networks. And then opportunities pass them by. And people I guess it's kind of like in your funding world, people think if they put in the proposal for the grant, for sure they're getting it, which is not the case. A lot of grant making is through relationships. Yeah. So maybe just talk a little bit about how you do that yourself, because you're very busy. I mean, you sit on at least 3 boards that I could count. And then they're not even local boards. So how do you maintain your networks?
Okay, I'll take an example. Let's say for the person who wants to get into Facebook and Google, I would say, like, where do these Facebook and Google people hang out? Like, that's where you need to be. The ones who work, not people on Facebook, the ones who work on Facebook, the people who work on Facebook, where do they hang out? Where do these Google people hang out? And in this virtual world, it could be which networking events do they go for? which chat rooms are they in, which events, basically which events do they go for, and make sure you lift your hand, ask a question, follow up, stuff like that. So basically you need to just be in the same space where these people are hanging out. And I do believe in 6 degrees of separation. Like you can actually ask somebody who knows somebody in Google, like in Facebook. It could be Facebook South Africa or whatever. And sometimes I have learned, after seeing my cousin going through this process, you can actually ask them to get on a call to tell you how the recruitment process is, to tell you how to prepare for it. Imagine, like that. I have actually witnessed that happening, and people are very willing to actually reach out to you and give you tips on what you need to prepare for an interview process. So don't shy away. And sometimes you don't have to be like, and this is something I learned. You can be very loud, and that's fine. The point is, look at yourself, look at your strengths and your weaknesses, and use that, So for me, when it comes to networking, I think my strength is, I can talk to different people, but I won't talk a lot. That's the thing, I won't talk a lot. But it's easy for me to make connections and build on something for a short period of time. But also sometimes when you go into networking events, sometimes I know people like to talk to very many people, but that actually tires me out. So me, what I started doing was, in a networking event, after 3 people, I'm good. I'm free to leave. Like, I know it just sounds weird, but usually what I found out is by the time I get to the 3rd person, we're probably, okay, this was in physical events. By the time you're in the 3rd person, there's probably a circle around you guys. There's 5 of you talking, and you're actually building a network. But also I have given myself permission to leave early if it's overwhelming for me. So similarly for you, if you're looking to build a new connection, first look at yourself. What are your strengths, your weaknesses, and build on your strengths. Go to these rooms where these people are hanging out, these spaces where they're hanging out, events, reach out to somebody in particular, go through your network, your friends, somebody knows somebody who possibly works in one of those organizations. Even if you're looking for a funder, funders actually do talk to people just like that. Just talk. You can even email them. Surprisingly, some could actually respond. And I think LinkedIn is good because I personally, this is just from experience, I find it so much easier to respond to LinkedIn because you don't have to be very professional. I can send you 2 lines and that's it, And then how do I maintain relationships? I don't know, like maybe sometimes just the occasional email, depending on, I think, because ultimately, even as I build these relationships, apart from just getting funding, for me, I actually do enjoy building relationships. So I actually do enjoy finding things we have in common. So I guess that makes it easier for us to build this relationship, for it to go beyond just about the money, and also just being yourself. You don't have to put, there's not a way you need to look, just be yourself, because I feel like people can actually tell. Well, a good number of people can tell. Whether you're genuine.
And just being in the moment. I liked what you said about just block out area, no judgment. I don't need to know what he's thinking in his head. He's probably not even thinking what you're thinking. He's too busy trying to also think about what you're thinking. Like, what's Judy thinking? Okay, all right. And tell me about the boards that you sit on. How did you even get to be in these boards, and what do you do?
That's the thing. Sometimes I wish there was like a formula, actually. I don't have it yet. So like for me, the board that I sit on in the Swedish Program for ICT in Developing Regions, I was actually recommended to that board by the project manager who used to manage the funds for Akirachix. So they were looking for people who are based in Africa, because many of their projects are based in Africa. So Cedar was funding them. So the guy put in my name, and then I had a meeting with the lady. We talked on email, and then she came to Kenya because there was a conference here in Kenya. And we just talked about like tech and just the tech ecosystem, you know. It wasn't really an interview. I mean, looking back now, I see how that could have been an interview, but I guess she was also just gauging to see what type of person I am, you know. And sometimes that's the challenge, you know. Sometimes it's kind of like the product market fit. Sometimes people are just looking for a certain thing. Sometimes you fit into the organization, sometimes you don't fit into the organization. And that should not be any judgment on you, because you can still find an organization that can vibe with the values that you have. And I'm saying this because I've also gone on interviews for boards, which I didn't make the cut, you know. And those are boards that I actually really wanted to be on, you know. So sometimes you get some, sometimes you don't get some. Yeah.
And what do you do?
What do I do when I don't get it?
No, in these boards.
Yes. So one of the things we do, and that was a question I had asked a lady some time back, because sometimes because the spider board is not a very structured board like bank boards. You know, there are certain bank boards where you actually have to go for training, and they have different committees and stuff like that. For the spider board, one of the things we do is we advise them on their programs, on any challenges that they are having. We look at their reports, question them, their financial and narrative reports for the organization. I think the greatest value, like now understanding it, I think the greatest value somebody adds to a board is the questions you ask. Because those questions you ask actually enable them to think of different ways of approaching things, or maybe identifying gaps that they had not identified, or bringing your own perspective to the meeting. And that's the thing, you need to realize that you are actually bringing a certain flavor of perspective to the meeting. That's why you are in that board. So there is no point of trying to be like somebody else on the board, you know, especially like for the spider board, it's a very diverse board of people from different countries. And at first it was very hard for me to find my space, because I was looking for a standard. I was like, so how are we supposed to be in this board? You know, should I be like this person? Should I be like this person? But then at some point I realized that my experience is my experience, and that's why I'm on this board. So that's what I need to bring: my experience, my perspective, my questions. Yeah.
Very interesting. So I'm sure, you know, someone may be thinking, oh my goodness, how do I get this board? How do I get this board positions? How would someone go about it?
One, you can actually apply for board positions, you know, because some organizations actually do advertise board positions. So you can apply for a board position. Two, I think there is a space for actually meeting with these organizations that you want to be on a board on, talking about opportunities for being on the board, or even how can somebody actually get on the board. So I think there is the pool where they can actually actively recruit you, and then there's the push where you're like, you know, I'm actually interested in how I can support you. Actually, I think that's one of the best ways of approaching it. Like, how can I support you? You know, and many times that is a very easy way for people to be like, to start considering you, like, this person can actually be on our board. Or even when you start having the conversation of, can I be on your board? There is a basis. Because most of the time, even when people are selecting people on their board, usually they're looking for complementary skills, probably skills they don't have, networks they don't have, perspectives they don't have. And then they would like to see a relationship between you and whatever brand that is. Like, do you support their vision? even if it's not in that particular space, like let's say if it's a women in tech organization, even if you don't support that organization, but in your work, are you actually supporting women in technology? If you're a champion for human rights, you want to get onto, like, let's say if you want to get on the board of Greenpeace, I'm not sure what Greenpeace do, but like, you know, what do you do in your work or in your free time in your life that aligns with the values that Greenpeace has, you know? So that would be an easy way for them to make the connection. Then they can be like, yeah, this person already believes in what we believe, and they can actually add value because this perspective is what we are lacking, you know, as we make decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Okay, so I think some of the things I've gotten out of it, by the way, guys, type in your questions if you haven't yet already. We're just about to start the Q&A. But one of the things that I'm realizing is, first of all, you have to have a very clear vision as to where it is that what is it that you want to do? Yeah, because the one thing I have never heard you talk about yourself is, say, I'm an IT person. Like sometimes I don't know if this has happened to you, you go into an interview and then someone describes themselves and you're really struggling to figure out where this person would fit. But to them, they think that, you know, by saying they're very general, that hopefully now we'll pick something up inside there, right? Yeah, but people really want, especially the more developed your career is, I mean, like more years of experience you have, people want you to be more focused. People want to have a very specific benefit you're providing, and you need to be able to articulate it. Yeah, you need to be able to articulate it. Like if there's anything that at the end of this year, you should be able to say about yourself is, this is what I am good at and this is what I provide. And to these types of people, that's really, really crucial. Because I don't think people even get people on their boards who are just generalists. Everyone is like, I want a specialist, right? Okay. And I really like, you know, what you were able to do with Akirachix and founding it and everything. Yeah. And in some way, I feel like Juakali is along those lines in creating that opportunity through technology and all of that. Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about Juakali workforce. And now what are you doing differently this time? Because Juakali is definitely not an NGO, social enterprise type thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So still focusing, okay, you know, with the Akirachix, we are focused more on people living in informal settlements and low-income places and giving them different, mostly young women, giving them opportunities to start careers in technology. Now with Juakali workforce, I think I came to a different kind of thinking. And the thinking I came to was that maybe not everybody needs to know how to code, you know? Maybe what we need is a way that technology can actually just change lives without people learning how to code. So one of the things that I kept on thinking about, which was the problem we were trying to solve with Akirachix, was like unemployment, you know, or underemployment of young girls. And when I started thinking like, how could we actually scale this? Like if we were to scale this thing to have massive impact and really change lives, where would we have the biggest impact if we were to scale this? And I thought the informal sector is definitely where it is. Like if we were really to deal with unemployment and underemployment, we need to invest in the informal sector. Why? Because consistently it's in the informal sector where jobs have actually been growing. Jobs in the formal sector have actually been stagnating, you know? And then I just was thinking, so how can we use technology to improve livelihoods of people working in the informal sector? Initially, the first idea I had was, you know, we build this platform where people can come, request for different services for the different people who work in the informal sector, mainly to give them visibility, access to market, and a way for them to, you know, increase their incomes. To be honest, that presented a challenge, especially if that service was to be sustainable and it had to operate at scale for it to be sustainable. And then considering that my background is actually technology, it's not really working in the Juakali sector, it's not really working in construction. So one of the challenges I had was with vetting of the workers. How do you actually tell that this worker, when they say they can do this, they actually do it? How do you do quality assurance that when they've actually done the work they've done it to, the quality that the client wanted. So now that's where I actually pivoted, and now I started working with contractors. And one of the things I did was building a digital service for contractors to manage their workers on sites. So, many labor contractors, especially these large labor contractors, they are on sites, they have all these workers, they have divided tasks to supervisors. But how do you actually track that this work has been done? And based on that, how do you actually pay these workers? Mm-hmm. So with that service, I co-developed it with a contractor. This time I learned from my previous experience, instead of just building this solution myself, now to build it with people who are actually working in the industry. So that's what we are doing now. Now building this service with contractors to help them manage their workers, to track the tasks, and to actually make payments. Eventually, I still want to go back to the B2C model, business to customer. People can still request the workers, but I do feel like there's a lot I need to learn in the industry, and I need somebody in the industry to help me maneuver that. And I need to just hang around the industry to understand how this industry actually works, because it's a new industry, it's a new space.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to start asking questions. So Alan asks, are the solutions, non-motorized solutions, going to be provided to towns outside Nairobi? Oh, it's on Nairobi.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that question, Alan. The good thing is many decision makers are starting to make investments into non-motorized transport. You can see in Mombasa and Kisumu, there's been an increased investment in pedestrian pathways. In Kisumu also, they're going to have a non-motorized zone. I think it's going to be launched end of September. And especially, especially in these secondary towns where people already, there are a lot of cyclists. One of the discussions we're having with governments is how much of your transport budget goes into building roads that are just for cars, vis-a-vis looking at your population. How many people are actually using these roads? How many people are driving, using public transport? How many people are walking? How many people are cycling? Take Nairobi, majority of the people actually walk. But when you look at investment, most investment goes into road transportation for cars. So now trying to get governments to start changing, that is actually working a lot. There's different organizations that are supporting the county governments to work around that. And there's also a lot of civil society organizations pushing for investment in cycle paths, in pedestrian paths. So that is actually changing in places outside Nairobi.
Awesome. I didn't know that.
I know it's no progress, but it's actually happening. I think one good example is Kisumu. If you've been to Kisumu recently, you notice that the roads are wider, the spaces for cyclists, the spaces for pedestrians, and also Mombasa has been investing in that, So that is happening. Even I think, Nakuru, I think we are still in talks with them. I'm not sure where that has gone, but you see there's a lot more investment in that. Even in Kiambu, there was that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And the next question is, how do you get comfortable speaking in front of people? Okay, I think you kind of touched on it, but yes.
By doing it. There's no formula, by the way. Okay, maybe there is a formula. You start with low risk environments. That's what I always say, low risk environments. A place where you're comfortable. You can say that you want to speak for 5 minutes, you want to speak for 3 minutes. Raise your hand up and ask a question, volunteer to do a presentation, and push through it. Even if you find yourself stuttering and stammering, you push through it, because it's part of the process, right? I remember there's my first time the first award I got, yeah, where I actually had to have a speech. So we were told to write down our speeches, you know, so that, you know, we have something that we can read. And I generally don't like speeches that are written down. I don't know, at that point I knew, but I was not confident enough to say no or something. Like, I just knew it was not a good idea. But now, because like I had been flown somewhere, I was getting an award, I was like, okay, let me write this thing down, because, you know, maybe this is what comes with the award. We write the speeches and we read them. And honest to God, I feel like that was the worst speech I have ever had, you know, because really, the thing is, every time I speak, I actually do get nervous, every time. But nowadays, I look at the nerves as a good thing, because me, when I get the nerves, it reminds me that this is important. You know, that's how I look at it. I'm getting nerves because this is important, not because I'm afraid, because this is important. And so, like, even, and I just like speaking what is in, like, I just like markers to just guide me, like, this is what I need to speak on, and then I tell a story around that. So now with this written speech that I was reading, the problem is, it's like the problem I have with written speeches and the problem I have with cramming. Yeah, those are two things I have a problem with. Because once I miss one word, I miss everything else. And then it takes me a long while to recover. That's why I just like speaking just like that. Like, I have an idea of what I'm going to say and I speak. Of course, that means I make some mistakes, but I'd rather live with that mistake than the one for I just forgot the rest of the speech. So what happened with that speech is I started reading it. And then after, I think, line number 3, I couldn't see the paper. But now I'm like, now I have to read the paper like this. I mean, it was so horrible. I was just like, now what was the point of like me to read a speech like this and the whole audience is there? And after that, that was the last time I have a written speech. Never again. Yeah.
Yeah, but at least you know. Now you know yourself very well.
I just learned that in front of thousands of people, but hey, yeah.
We live.
Yeah.
You know, but then all they remember, you know, the funny thing is, you think, you know, sometimes we think that, oh, people remember every mistake I made. But actually what we remember is that you're the girl who got that award.
Exactly.
And I like when you said that, you know, it's so funny. Yeah. Okay. And then the next one is, I have a business idea that I'd like to work on, but I just can't seem to find the time. How can I negotiate with my boss to get time off to work on my business?
Oh, that's nice. At least you're thinking about negotiating with your boss. That's a very interesting question, with how you can negotiate. I guess now that question would be, you know, do you work over the weekends? How early do you get up to go to work, and how late do you get to go to work? I'm just looking at places where you could actually create time. I'm just trying to figure out, how do you negotiate with your boss to give you, the thing is, this business you want to start, is it in the interest of your boss and the organization? Like that's something you need to think about. Like, how does you working on this business benefit the organization? Is it something like you can say, like, if I work on this business, I feel like I'll be more productive in this when I come to work? Is it that this business is going to supplement the income that you're getting from your current job? And also maybe even thinking about, like, if you actually negotiate for more time with your business, does that mean that your salary will be affected? You know, so I guess those are the things you need to think about. But I think mainly is really what is the interest for your boss to support you beyond you growing yourself. Will it bring any value to the company? Will it bring any value to the team? I think that those are some of the things you need to think about.
Yeah. And I think if it's one of those situations where honestly your boss won't understand, maybe this is something that's a passion thing and there's no way to relate it to the mission, maybe you come into work at 6. I had a workmate, by the way, who used to get into the office at 6:30, and then she'd leave at, I think, 2:30. Yeah. And that way, she should clock in the hours, she'd be totally present at work. But whatever it is that she used to do after that, we did not know. But that we just knew she's not available from 2:30. She's done her work day. So if your boss is also open to something like that, I guess you could speak to them about it. And just say that you just want to be getting to work earlier. Yeah. Okay. Then how do you hold your own in a male-dominated industry? Oh, okay. Let me add something to that, Judy. First of all, you thinking about the kind of things that you've done, and many times the people you're working with are older. Yeah. Not only, not necessarily the male thing, but maybe older, like people who are much older than you, or maybe from a very different cultural context than you. How do you hold your own in those situations?
Yeah, I think that's a tough question, and just I don't know if there's a one size fits all way of navigating the space. I think one of the things I do is, one, I understand what I bring to the table. I understand why I'm in this room. Yeah. So number one, I need to be clear on why am I in this room. Do I know what I'm bringing to this table? And if I don't know everything, who do I need to talk to so that I know exactly what I'm supposed to bring to this table and I become an authority on it. Yeah, that's number one. But we all know that sometimes the world is not a meritocracy, and things are not done on merit. Yeah. So, but one of the things I do is, like, number one, let's eliminate merit. Like, one of the things I say is, nobody's going to question my work. Yeah. I'm going to deliver. Like, what is needed to be delivered, I'm going to deliver. But number two, what I also do is, sometimes I am not afraid to assert myself. But I always take time before I assert myself. Whenever I enter into these spaces, basically, I'll give you an example, just a practical example. Whenever I go into new spaces, physical spaces, I didn't realize I do this, but I like going to the corner. I like observing people. I love people watching. Yeah, that's something I do in my free time, anytime. In town, I can actually sit and just watch people. Like,
I do it at restaurants too, yeah.
And I'd be so fulfilled, by the way. So I use the same thing whenever I'm in new spaces, to basically watch how people interact. You do and you understand that there are the people who have position and the people who have power. And sometimes I just need to map who is the person with position and who is the person with power. Like, basically, there are those people who don't have position, but for some reason they just have influence over people. And sometimes I just need to understand why is this the case. The other thing I do, which is a little bit questionable, is I actually talk to people. Sometimes if I actually find somebody who I can trust in that space, like, I can actually ask them, so, like, just tell me about, like, your experience over here. Like, sometimes I'm like, so who do I need to watch out for? Sometimes I actually ask that question, because sometimes, and by the way, I don't do that even on the first month, because it kind of takes time before I build trust with people. What I have actually found is many times people volunteer that information before I actually ask the question. Basically, usually it's the people who you have gone to, who you're like, okay, I need to do this task. I want to do it well. How do I do it well? Who do I need to speak to? Who do I need to work with? And usually when you're having that conversation, they're like, okay, so don't talk to this person. This person, nah, they're not going to help you because of, no, this is the person you need to talk to, and stuff like that. I don't know, they call that knowledge. It's called something knowledge. I don't know what it is. It's basically the knowledge that people hold in their minds or something, or in their heads.
Empirical.
I don't know if that is the one. Maybe that's the word. So now we're talking about, like, male spaces. Yeah. So one, I have made sure that I know what I'm supposed to do, or if I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, I have asked relevant people what I'm supposed to do, how they could help me to get to wherever I'm supposed to be. 2, I have started making connections with different people in the organization, because, politics is real, and, people and relationships, man, it's a real thing. And number 3, now at that point, I'm really not afraid to assert myself. What does that mean? It means that sometimes you have been given a position, or you're in this project and this is the role that you have been given, and people will question you, one, because they can, because they want to, or maybe it's a legitimate question. But in that moment when that presents itself, I do not shy away from asserting myself, asserting my position, asserting my knowledge. Yeah. And not in a, well, I think it's not in a disrespectful way. Maybe you need to talk to my colleagues to ask them. But generally, I don't know. But generally, my aim is never to ruffle feathers, and my aim is never to put anybody down. My aim is always to kind of build a relationship with these people or this person when it's possible. There are some people who really it's just not possible, and you just accept our relationship will always be professional, and we just keep it professional. So that's how I really navigate spaces with men. Sometimes it's really difficult, because especially sometimes when you're in a global space, people just already come with their judgments already made. And sometimes it's hard to work around that. I think for me, most of the time, I just put in the work, though I know sometimes putting in the work is not enough. One of the things I do is I try and identify people who could be my allies in the space, because you always need somebody in the space who I think you can just vibe with, people whose energies resonate with energy. Those are the people I look for. And then building a relationship with my supervisor and my boss. That was something I was always afraid of. I would never talk to my boss unless I had to, unless I was called into his or her office. But now I have been learning that, it's okay to say hi and ask how they're doing, and ask how their family is doing, because at the end of the day, they're humans too, So I find that those are some of the ways I've been able to navigate the male-dominated spaces. But I think big for me, the lesson that I have learned most recently is that one for talking to your boss like a human being.
Absolutely. And I think that applies to everyone, really. Yeah. And those are really good points. And I think the other one is, and a lot of these things that we're worried about and we want to grow into, it's really focusing on what's on the table to do, and not about what people will think about it, what is the possible outcome, what are the possible things that couldn't happen, and things like that. Yeah, just focusing on what is on the table to do. Okay. So Judy, in closing, what would you like to tell us? That's on your heart to say.
Okay, this is on my heart. And it's something that I just thought about right now as I was thinking about navigating male-dominated spaces. One, just be yourself, because that is the prize. That is why you're in that space, because of who you are first, and then what you bring. Because, they say, skills, people will get skills from anywhere. Skills they can teach to anybody, but your personality, you as a person, that is what is going to keep you. That's your staying power. That's your X factor, you as a person. And you don't need to be anybody else. All you need to do is sharpen that, build a niche around that. And it's only you who can bring that to the table, And sometimes that's what people are really looking forward to. And then the second one is, this is now the one that's really been in my heart, just right now in my life, and even just thinking now, I thought about it when navigating male-dominated spaces, or even navigating spaces where you feel like maybe there are people who are a little bit hostile and stuff like that, or people who just don't understand you. Sometimes a lot of times when people do things, it's really about them than about you. A lot of times it's a lot of projection of what is going through their lives, you know. And sometimes it's really hard because you're just like, but this person is doing this to me, you know, it's being done to me. But I guess I'm learning at this point in my life that a lot of people's reaction is more about themselves, how they've grown up, who they are as a person. It's more about them than it is about me. And a lot of times, especially when people feel threatened by you, or, you know, they just see you as competition, or you want to take their position, it's insecurity on their part. It's really not about you.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's nothing you can do, you know, to deal with that. Like, that is something that that person has to work on. And I guess going through that and thinking about that has freed me of, you know, judging people so harshly or holding some things against people. Because now I'm just like, yo, this is really about you. This is not about me, you know. I'm just the person who you felt like throwing what was in your heart today, but
yeah.
not about me, you know. So yeah.
Absolutely. Empathy. All right. So guys, we've come to the end of the session. Judy, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and being so generous with your story and your insights and all that. It's been very good. Really enjoyed it. And I would like to thank you guys as well for joining us. So at the end, we just usually unmute and we just say, thank you, Judy, and then we call it a night. Yeah, so you're free to unmute now and just say thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
It's good. It's all good.
Thank you for your story. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Caroline says, very insightful. Thank you, Judy. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, guys. And I wish you all the very best. Have a great rest of the week. Yeah. And go out there and own your space. Huh? Like, raise your hand. I think that's the theme for the last 2 sessions. Huh? Raise your hand. Yeah. So all the very best, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.